2:17 in the morning, our system showed a marine distress beacon moving inland. That was impossible. A beacon does not travel 14 kilometers through forest, climb a ridge, and stop beside an abandoned microwave tower. I worked the overnight communications desk for a contractor in Prince Rupert. We maintained radio links used by tug crews, ferry staff, logging camps, and provincial agencies. Most nights I watched signal levels, logged outages, and called the on-duty technician if something failed. A storm had come in from Hecate Strait. Rain hit the office windows sideways, and several repeaters were flickering because of wet snow on higher ground. The signal appeared on an old monitoring screen. It identified as an emergency beacon from a fishing boat called Northern Finch. I checked the Federal Registry. The owner's number went to voicemail. The signal was weak, but steady. At first, the map placed it west of Digby Island. Then it jumped to the mainland and began moving east in short steps. I assumed bad coordinates caused by the terrain. I wrote probable multipath error in the log and phoned the regional marine desk. The man who answered asked me to repeat the beacon number. When he came back from hold, he said Northern Finch had been removed from the registry 8 months earlier after a fire at a storage yard. I asked whether the beacon had been stolen. He said it should have been destroyed with the boat. While we spoke, the signal moved again. It was following the access road toward one of our repeater sites. The site sat above the harbor behind a locked forestry gate. We had an equipment shelter, a backup generator, and an old tower that no longer carried commercial traffic. I called our on-call technician, Mara. She said no work had been authorized there. Then she asked if the gate alarm had triggered. It showed normal. Mara told me to check the maintenance history. 3 weeks earlier, someone had opened the shelter at 3:42 a.m. using a valid contractor code. The system listed an electrician who had retired 2 years earlier. That was when I stopped thinking it was a mapping problem. Mara contacted the RCMP while I stayed with the marine desk. The beacon reached the tower and stopped. A minute later, one active repeater lost power. Then another one dropped. The outages formed a rough line south toward the harbor. Mara said someone might be creating a communication gap. She told me not to leave the office or restart anything remotely. I switched to a spectrum display and noticed a narrow signal pulsing beneath the beacon transmission every 11 seconds. It looked like a low-power data link. Using 3 receiver sites, I estimated its direction. It was moving downhill. The RCMP called back. Officers had reached the forestry gate. The padlock looked intact, but the chain had been cut and placed back together. Fresh tire tracks led up the ridge. Halfway up, officers found a white utility van parked under trees. It had no markings and no plates. The rear doors were open. Inside were marine batteries, cable, amplifiers, and hard cases with government inventory stickers. No one was there. The beacon kept moving. It passed below the officers and continued toward town. Mara wondered whether it was mounted on a drone. The weather was too rough for most drones, but the signal rose and fell too smoothly for something flying. It was in another vehicle. The signal reached the industrial area near the grain terminal and stopped beside a fenced storage compound used by several contractors, including us. I could see part of that yard from the office window. The rain made everything outside look flat and gray, except for the security lamps reflecting off the shipping containers. Headlights came on behind the fence. A pickup rolled between the containers, then switched its lights off. It stopped beside our spare equipment trailer. I told the dispatcher what I could see. The pickup backed toward the trailer. 2 people got out in reflective rain gear and went straight to the lock. Police arrived less than 4 minutes later. 1 person escaped through a drainage ditch. The other was arrested beside the truck. The arrested man carried no identification. The pickup was stolen. Inside, police found printed maps of repeater sites, copies of access codes, and a handheld transmitter broadcasting the old distress beacon number. We later learned that several thefts of communications equipment along the coast had been treated as unrelated break-ins. The thieves created fake outage patterns to pull technicians away from storage yards while they stole replacement gear. The man they arrested never explained how they got our current codes. Our company changed every lock, password, and contractor credential. The retired electrician's code had supposedly been deleted years before. 3 months later, during another storm, I was reviewing archived logs. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the same beacon number appeared for one transmission. The location was inside our office building. No equipment was missing. Police found nothing. The receiver that recorded it had been disconnected from its antenna since the night of the arrest.